Number 1. When I was a sophomore in college, I had an evening ASL class on the second floor of a building. During that time, the first floor of the building, which had mainly offices for professors, was actually pretty deserted. One day, before class, I decided to use the restroom on the first floor. As in most restrooms, the handicapped stall was at the very end, and I went into the stall right next to it. I entered the stall quickly and without inspecting it, and immediately hung my purse on the hook. As I turned around, I noticed that there was a gigantic pair of men's sneakers poking under the right wall of the stall. From the way they were positioned, a person would have to have been standing on the other side of the wall in the handicapped stall, facing my stall. I freaked the fuck out. It was completely silent in the bathroom, and I was scared that if I acted alarmed, that it would provoke the person into action. The entire time that I had been in the bathroom, the person hadn't spoken or moved at all. I hastily grabbed my things and went to leave. It was one of the bathrooms with a little vestibule type thing before the entrance to the restroom, so you have to go through 2 doors to get inside the actual bathroom. As I was going out the first door, I heard a loud clang and turned in time to see that the door of the handicapped stall had swung open, but nobody had come out of it. I'm assuming that the person kicked the door. I got out of that place and ran upstairs to class. Pretty anticlimactic, but it is hands down one of the creepier things that has happened to me. I shudder to think of what a man would be doing in a women's bathroom, and I'm completely bewildered by the fact that he was just standing against the wall, facing the wall. It was almost like he was trying to hide and didn't realize that I could see his feet. In any case, nope. I had class immediately afterward, but I texted my mother and told her what happened, and she called the campus police for me. I never used that restroom ever again. Number 2. A couple of years ago, one of my closest friends relocated cross-country with his long-term girlfriend to work a job he couldn't refuse. Only issue he had was that he did not want to fly his dogs out with him when they made the move, since they'd be staying in a hotel for the first month. He was also a bit reticent to fly them out due to health concerns for both pets, and by the time he located a home to rent, he was missing his furry buddies and made the request of his sister, another close friend, and myself to drive them to him in LA. Now, we are Chicago folks, so the trip would be a long one. However, with the 3 of us to foot the near 30-hour drive, it would be a piece of cake. We left early and drove long hours. Along the way, it was decided between my friend and I that we'd foot the majority of the drive ourselves, and if we need to, we'd let our friend's sister do some driving. We were on a bit of a time crunch due to a snafu with the rental agreement, so we didn't have the luxury to stop very often past an 8-hour stay at a Denver La Quinta Inn. As for the journey itself, it was relatively smooth, barring getting pulled over right before entering Utah for driving for 2 miles in the left lane of an empty highway. Whoops. And from that point we made it through Utah, Arizona and Nevada without much trouble, until we entered California in need of gas. I'd been driving for the majority of the first day and tagged my body in after being pulled over. I remained in the shotgun seat as the navigator, searching through the GPS for a fuel stop. We kept our eyes peeled for road signs and soon discovered a sign pointing to Yermo Ghost Town, or something along those lines, which had a mobile station. How wonderful. It was convenient too, as it was located almost directly off of the interstate. We rolled in on a little more than fumes when we approached the pumps. Normally, we let the dogs out at every stop, but having stopped not long before then and with both dogs sleeping snugly in the back, I decided to pump gas without anyone else leaving the vehicle. My buddy pulled us up on the opposite side of a beat-up green sedan with a short, plump gentleman who just turned in to approach the shop. I noticed a few other vehicles at the pumps, all unoccupied, and there were a couple of other cars parked up near the station, most likely belonging to the employees, so nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until I swiped my credit card. The pump rejected my first swipe attempt, which I chalked up to a misread. I swiped again and the pumps read out, "Please see attendant." I was annoyed, but we needed gas. I tapped on the window and told my body what I was going to do, and asked if anyone needed anything. After taking their orders for Gatorade and Marlboro Reds, I walked up to the store and made a mental note of how strange this gas station was. Kind of quiet, especially for one right off of the interstate. But that's no matter. As I walked in though, more weirdness. First thing I notice is that there are some boxes of chips just left on the floor. Like someone was stocking shelves and just quit. As I veered to my right, I noticed that immediately there is no one moving about in this place. With the 6 cars besides my own out there, I felt like I would see someone. Things got even weirder when I realized that there was no one behind the counter, no customers or workers. And then it dawned on me, what had happened to the gentleman who was at the pump adjacent to mine? Surely they can't all be in the bathroom. This is where I begin to feel this gnawing sensation in my stomach. Something isn't right. I've always been a person who felt like I could trust my instincts, and those instincts were screaming at me to just get the hell out of there. I want to run, but I hold back. I would look suspicious booking it out of a gas station that was empty and decide to just play it cool, natural. Don't let your body language let onto how badly you're freaking out in your head. I was probably inside of the gas station for only a couple of minutes when I left, but I stopped just before exiting to listen for something. Anything. A flushing toilet would have been a good sound, but nothing. As I exit the shop and see my car, I begin to feel dread. It's like that moment in a movie where the hero is about to make it to the end of the trial, but the celebratory fanfare disappears, and in that silence, something comes and strikes them down. I'm about 25 yards from the car when I see this gentleman come out from around the side of the shop opposite of me. This is not the same man as I saw while pumping gas. He was larger and had a peculiar look on his face. The best way I could describe it was like Nick Cage's smile from Face Off. I continued walking towards my car, but when I turned back to look at him, he was now walking towards me with a purpose. At this point, I noped my way back to the car with increased urgency in my step. My friend has the door to the car locked like a complete douche clown. There is also the 95-pound golden retriever sitting in my seat. Apparently my travel companions did not notice how freaked out I was, or the creepy gentleman still walking in my direction. I punched the door and told him to unlock the fucking door, to which he only half rolls down the window to tell me that the dog was in my seat, and they were afraid that she'd jump out when I opened the door. I reached my hand in and threw the dog towards the back seat as hard as I could, while my friend is just now realizing how freaked out I am. He started the car and drove off quickly. I took one last look back and see that Nick Cage had stopped about a pump away from where we were, still with that same look on his face. We found another gas station further down the road, this time with a ton of people inside and out. After thoroughly creeping out my friends with the story, I pumped gas. We made our way back to the interstate, which meant passing that gas station again. It's been about 15 minutes since we pulled out initially, and we go silent as we notice that those very same cars are still sitting in the same spots where we had left them. After thoroughly freaking out for a few miles, I received a phone call from my credit card company about $100 charge at Mobil Station. The lady on the phone was really helpful in fixing the situation for me, and was as entirely creeped out by the situation as we were. In the end, we made it to LA and had a great vacation, but it still bothers me as to what the hell was going on in this little gas station off the highway, and what the hell was that smiling man's story? What did he want? Number 3. I'm a proud Floridian. At the time of this story, early 2000s, I was going to college in South Florida and lived with my family in my hometown in the Florida Panhandle. It's about a 7-hour drive up through Central Florida to get between the two places. so I mostly only went home for the holidays. It was the Thanksgiving of my junior year, and I was excited that I had managed to rearrange my midterms to be able to leave campus 3 days ahead of everyone else. I was expecting to beat the masses of traffic and was hoping for a quick trip back home. My roommates wanted to have a last meal together before we all left for break, so I ate in the campus dining hall around 4 PM, and I set off on my journey around 5:30 PM. Around 10:30 PM, I had just passed my 2/3 mark, where I always stopped at this little mum and pop's type of dinner by the side of the highway to grab a snack, use the restroom, and call my dad to let him know that I was okay. I didn't have a cell phone yet. Well, I hadn't been there since summer, and the place was out of business. So, a little bummed out that I wasn't getting my chocolate chip pancakes, I just kept going. There really wasn't much built up around there at the time, so when I saw signs for a rest stop in, of all the places on God's green earth, some bumfuck town called Alaku. So when I saw signs for a rest stop in, of all the places on God's So when I saw signs for a rest stop in, of all the places in God's So when I saw signs for a rest stop in, of all the places on God's green earth, some bumfuck town called Alakua, I went for it. So I went and parked directly under the streetlight for safety and used the facilities and called my dad, etc., etc. I didn't see anyone else there except for a very exhausted looking woman who approached me asking for directions, saying that she was with her husband with 2 small children from Virginia and that they had made a wrong turn trying to get to Disney. So I left the rest area and was walking back to my car when I noticed a beat up, unmarked, grey or bluish work van parked this close to the driver's side of my 95 Honda Civic. Yeah, okay, I thought that's pretty weird. They had Florida tags on it, so it couldn't have been the ladies I talked to in the bathroom. I distinctly remembered that she said she was from Virginia. I turned around and hightailed it back to the rest stop, promptly running into some random middle-aged guy with 2 little boys. Getting to talk to him, it turned out that it was his wife that I had spoken to, as she emerged from the bathroom a second later, and I felt comfortable speaking to him. I told him what was going on with the van, and how I didn't know what to do. He said he'd go check it out, so he left the kids with his wife and strutted up to the driver's side of the van. He stood there for a moment before speaking, and his voice awkwardly quivered, but we could hear him yell it from where we were standing, some 100 feet away. "Excuse me, gentlemen. We already called the police, so I'm going to have to politely suggest that you get out of here now." And then he ran back to us, grabbed his wife and his kids, pointed to me with a swift "you" and said, "Come on, let's get in the car, now." And we ran together. So here I was, confused, sitting in the back of this passenger's SUV, while he went and used the payphone to presumably call the police. Meanwhile, the van peeled out of there. Like, I have never seen someone get the fuck out of there quite like they just got out of there. They ran up on the curb on their way out. They burned rubber. It was almost comical. The cops got there and I found out what happened. The man went to go and check out the van, and he could see in it pretty well because I had parked under the streetlight. And the first thing he noticed was that all of the seats except for the driver's seat had been removed. There was a guy sitting in the driver's seat and a guy sitting in the back, a tarp laid out in the back, and a bunch of other random items back there that he couldn't immediately identify. Neither of the guys were reading a newspaper or a map or anything. They were apparently both just sitting there. It still makes me sick thinking about it. What were their intentions? I have no doubts that they were waiting for me to come back. Number 4. My first year of high school, my locker was in a main hallway, right next to the first floor girls' bathroom. As a big theatre nerd, I usually stayed after school for rehearsal. My routine didn't vary much. When the last bell of the day rang, I'd go to my locker, get my books, and wait for the kids taking the bus to clear out so I could use the bathroom in relative peace. The hall monitor assigned to this hall was the new female field hockey coach, Coach Bren. Coach Bren was a tall, intimidating woman. Every day, once the buses had departed, Coach Bren would come into the girls' bathroom and check around. I'd usually pass her on my way in or out of the restroom, or I'd hear her come in while I was in a stall. It struck me as odd though. Why would she need to patrol the bathroom after the school day had ended? As far as I knew, none of the other bathrooms in the school were checked at this time. I chalked it up to an overachieving faculty member taking her duty as enforcer of the peace very seriously. Although I saw Coach Bren almost every day, she never gave anything other than a nod of acknowledgement. She rarely made eye contact with me. It was a little weird. Her just walking into the bathroom, looking around, checking under the stalls. I've never been a skittish or nervous person, so I berated myself for even giving her behavior a second thought. Regardless, I listened to my instincts and tried to book it out of there every time she showed up, or used a different bathroom. Fast forward a year. My friend calls me up to tell me that Coach Bren had been charged with sexually abusing a 15-year-old female student at a school she had previously worked at. The abuse had gone on for several months, after which she quit her job and got a new one, at my school. She was arrested and later convicted with second-degree sexual assault and a few other things. She actually was released from prison recently, I believe. I always wonder if her reasons for checking the bathroom after school were more sinister than I had originally suspected. Number 5. In the mid-70s, while my dad was in law school, my family was living in Washington state. While there, my mother's good friend had a very strange encounter. This is her story as she told it to me. She was having car trouble one rainy afternoon and pulled off into a rest stop to check it out. Washington is particularly wooded. So many rest stops feel secluded and are often not visible from the highway. After a few minutes, a man pulled up in a VW Beetle and parked behind her. He was well dressed and properly groomed. He was handsome enough, but he gave her the absolute creeps. He asked if she needed any help and offered her a ride. At this point, the rain was pretty intense, and she said that under ordinary circumstances, she may have taken him up on the offer, but the hair on the back of her neck stood up, and for no discernible reason. All she wanted to do was get away from him. He continued to pester her for a minute or two, making witty jokes and trying to flirt with her. Just then, another car pulled into the rest area. The man quickly said goodbye and calmly walked back to his car. He pulled away slowly, smiling her as he drove past. About a year later, she recognized a picture of him on the news as a man recently caught and suspected of multiple murders across the West and Northwest US. It was the infamous Ted Bundy. I don't know a lot about him, but from what I understand, it wasn't uncommon for Bundy to lure women into his car in public places, and he would generally commit the crimes elsewhere.